My name's Ira Wolfe. My company is Success Performance Solutions, and I'm the author of the new book, Recruiting in the Age of Googlization. A company's brand is more important than ever. It takes years to create that brand and build a positive image, but with the age of social media, it can be destroyed in just seconds. So it's more important than ever to hire employees who can build and sustain that image and add value rather than taint it. Now, business ethics means a lot of things to a lot of people. For some, it's as simple as reliability, showing up on time or actually showing up at all, or honesty. Certainly, stealing is pretty clear-cut, or theft or embezzlement's a pretty clear-cut an indictment of business ethics. But it gets a little bit more cloudy when it comes to higher level positions, management and sales, when they involve confidentiality and compliance and safety, conscientiousness, social responsibility. The biggest challenge that many organizations have in finding out what the business ethics of a candidate is and whether they're going to fit into your organization isn't necessarily the problem of the candidate, but a lack of definition by the company or by management, because very few business ethics discussions are had until there's potentially a breach of that ethics. But in 20 years of working with companies, I rarely hear managers or HR ask in-depth interview questions about ethics. And yet it seems to be when you ask a company what's one of the number one traits or qualities you're looking for, it's integrity. But people just don't seem to interview for that. They seem to think that there's a correlation between 10 years of experience or a particular school that somebody went to that's related to that. And when they do ask questions about ethics, it's almost like they're looking for hoping the candidate gives that one right answer in the begin with, so they can move on, because it's a difficult subject to discuss ethics. And so that manager asks a question, the candidate gives a response, and then the interviewer just happens to move on. So certainly improving, if business ethics is important in your organization, then it should be made an important part of the interview process and also the screening process. Some of the best practices relating to assessing a candidate's business ethics is definitely not an exact science, but there are a few steps that you can take. The first is, I mentioned earlier that the interview should include several questions to assess how a candidate might respond to some ethical dilemmas. You might ask if they've ever, or how they would handle a situation where a coworker or an employee or even a manager, they observed stealing or even harassing someone. So part of it is putting them on the spot a little bit, but you can pose some hypothetical situations, but it's most beneficial if you can find some situations that were realistic. And also asking these questions, it's just not asking the question, but making sure that the interviewer is trained, that they're comfortable. Because again, asking questions about business ethics can put both the interviewer and the candidate on the spot, and the interviewer needs to be comfortable with that and know how to handle it. Reference checks are also important, although they're very, very difficult to get. But background checks are a must, especially for critical situations where ethics is essential. They don't always expose anything, but oftentimes they will reveal that somebody falsified their resume, either with employment or education. So those are relatively easy to check. More of these challenging ethical dilemmas you're probably not going to be able to detect on a background check, but you can certainly expose the people who are going to be high risk. And then finally, there are some assessments, pre-employment testing for honesty and integrity. Most of them are designed to be used on the hourly associate level. They can test for risks of absenteeism, tardiness, theft, hostility, sexual harassment, computer abuse. So those are validated. They are legal. They're compliant with the EEO. And although they're not a slam dunk, it's not an exact science, they do help identify the people who are high risk. Most of those types of assessments also come with interview questions, and those interview questions are based on how the person responded. So if they do have some behaviors that are suspicious and they responded in a way that might indicate that they have a kind of a risky attitude or a vulnerable attitude, you'll have interview questions to be able to assist in digging down a little bit different. For management and sales and senior level executives, it's a little bit harder, but most pre-employment or most personality tests include a scale called conscientiousness. It's one of the most validated and reliable personality trait scales that's out there. And while it won't detect if somebody is honest or not, it will determine how closely that person kind of leans toward the black and white or right or wrong, or whether they use rules and guidelines. And in different organizations, that could be tolerated. Sometimes you want people to push the limits and push the envelope a little bit, as long as they don't cross over that line. And in other industries or jobs, it's critical that they abide by the rules and comply with the rules and regulations as they are. Although it's difficult to assess business ethics and integrity, there are some assessment tools that can assist on that. Background checks can help, reference checks can help, and certainly becoming more skilled at the behavioral and situational interview should help a great deal.